Welcome to the VIFF Podcast, recorded on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. This podcast is a chance to hear more from the filmmakers presenting work at the annual Vancouver International Film Festival, as well as year-round at the VIFF Centre. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the VIFF Podcast. My name is Curtis Woloschuk. I'm the Director of Programming at VIFF. I'm very excited to be joined by Kent Donguines, Director of Treasure of the Rice Terraces. Welcome, Kent.
Thank you so much for having me, Curtis.
So we always love to hear from filmmakers. Describe the film in your own words for us.
You know, I think there's been a lot of iterations of this film, given that it's been cooking for 5 years. But Treasure of the Rice Terraces is a film about my journey into reclaiming my sense of Filipino identity through traditional Filipino tattoos, featuring the work of the iconic and legendary Apo Whang-Od, a 108-year-old tattoo artist from Buscalan village in the northern part of the Philippines that now defines what Filipino identity is today.
Hearing you say that, I fully believe you've done 4 podcasts today. You are dialed in. You are dialed in indeed.
Yes.
And you said like kind of been cooking for 5 years. I think I read as well, maybe like development of this project began as far back as 2016.
Yes.
And wondering if that 2016 version of yourself saw this finished film today, would they recognize it as the project you kind of conceived back then, or how much did the project maybe evolve over the course of those 9 years?
Yeah, I think it would have been a totally different movie if I ended up making Treasure of the Rice Terraces back in 2016. Originally, we put it together in development as a triad comparative documentary between Philippines, Canada, and New Zealand, because at that time, all of these countries were having some kind of revitalization when it comes to traditional Filipino tattoos. But in 2016, it was that recurring dream that came to me that really sparked my interest in making a movie about tattoos. And seeing Treasure of the Rice Terraces now, it really, taught me about the importance of development, taking your time, and also not taking a bite of something that you can't chew. Yeah.
Well, and was This Ink Runs Deep, was that part of that original kind of triptych?
Yes,
as well?
yes.
Yeah, which is a short film directed by Asia Youngman that you produced and wrote as well.
Yes.
And yeah, wondering maybe as well, like those steps in one direction before you realized you needed to pivot or kind of realign yourself. Were there kind of like critical moments that really set you on the course that eventually got you to the film?
Yeah. Well, when we were doing This Ink Runs Deep in 2019, I saw Mac, my co-producer in Asia, getting tattooed by Indigenous tattoo artists across Canada. And to me, I was like, I kind of want that, but I'm not Canadian, so I don't feel like I'm the right person to be doing that. And we pursued further development, obviously on my own at this point. And yeah, like the more I kind of leaned into what the journey looks like on my end, I kind of just trusted my gut from there and just follow along. And yeah, and when we got development funding from Indigenous Screen Office, I also developed this from during my time at the Hot Docs Doc Accelerator Program. Rogers, also a group of funds from Creative BC also came in for development. I was like, okay, I actually have enough resources to just see what's out there. Is this even tangible? Is this doable? And in the last portion of our development, that's when Knowledge Network came in, and we did a full pilgrimage back to Buscalan with my cinematographer and my producer, Jacob Crawford. And that's when we knew right there and then that we have something very, very special here.
What were maybe some critical steps between over that almost decade for yourself as a director as well? With Sync Runs Deep, it was directed by Asia, but maybe for yourself of kind of having the confidence in a directorial capacity.
I think when I got the chance to take on the director's chair the first time in 2022 through Tell a Story Hive, I felt the pressure coming into it. Because I've produced projects for different directors, from Asia, from Max, and some other directors that I would just produce, to help bring their visions to life. But then when it came down to my own work, I really tried to make it about what I want to tell as a filmmaker. Let's say there's 24 hours left in this world, and there's one thing I want the world to be remembered about me, and that's something that I've constantly reflected on, and it was really feeling confident about my own skin as a Filipino and the commitment to bring Philippines and Canada through the stories I tell. It's what That's what gave me confidence and really, like prepared me to make treasure.
It Yeah, I was gonna ask you as well. It's you're such a presence, obviously, in the film, in the finished film, but was there kind of an evaluation for yourself of, um, or a point in time, like a turning point where you're like, this is really also about my journey and determining how you wanted to kind of position yourself within the narrative?
Mm-hmm. You're gonna make me cry, Curtis. Um, I think looking back, um, with my own journey, I think all, not just me, the entire team as well who was there with me in the Philippines. Um, the moment we screened the film the very first time in the village twice, that's when everything just fell into place in terms of validating my journey, sharing how special this village is, talking about Apo Whang-Od stories, and screening it in front of their own community with the visitors who just happens to be there, ended up watching the movie and coming to us and says, like, this is what I'm trying to do right now, and I really see myself reflected in your journey. And to me, as a filmmaker, that was a big win. um Sometimes, especially in this industry, we tend to forget to celebrate the small wins that we get in the process. And right there and then, I told my team we're already successful because we finished the movie. We don't, like, not necessarily saying that we don't need film festivals. Of course, we do need film festivals to get the film out there and share it to as many people as possible. But let's not forget the very important step, which was finishing the movie, and we screened it in front of the community it served first.
You mentioned earlier in the conversation that this village is now really a destination for pilgrimages. However many people are passing through there on a daily, on a weekly basis, looking for these tattoos and wondering, how that knowledge maybe informed how you wanted to show up in that
Mm-hmm.
space as someone looking to share those stories, and then how you wanted to honor the stories of the people who make a home there as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, coming into the project, we knew that building a relationship with the village as a whole was vital for the film. We didn't want to make a movie just about Apo Whang-Od or the apprentices Grace and El Young, because their stories are already out there. So when we got there for the first time, like in the village, not when we got there and then got sent back because of COVID, we really tried our best to just connect with the community. Like, no cameras were rolling. Jacob, a producer, and John Fleming, the cinematographer, they literally lifted bags of cement to help build the basketball court to help build the basketball court in the village. While while I was like mingling with the elders, like getting to know more of the locals, like where can we stay, or like who can we talk to if we want to do certain things. Um, and the moment, I believe, day three of our trip, the moment we asked permission if we can start filming, that's when everyone was like, "Oh, it's okay.
Mhm.
You know, you're still visitors, but we're comfortable because you guys are here, and you're one of the few people, or a few of the people who would come here for more than 2 days, because we stayed there the first time for almost 2 weeks, and they're so used to having visitors that would stay there for a night or two and then go home,
Yeah.
and just having to spend that amount of time in the village, taught us how beautiful and magical this place is. And it also taught them that our intentions are actually, not to exploit their stories or their community. We're talking about a village that gets exploited day after day, with vloggers coming up there, making a video about them, and then monetize that video and not giving back to the community. But for us, it was a roller coaster of a process. I'm not gonna lie. Not only we received an endorsement from the Philippine Consulate General here in Vancouver, we worked with the national and regional tourism offices in the Philippines. We worked with the National Commission of the Indigenous Peoples in the Philippines, preconception to delivery. So when we screened the film in the village, a representative from the NCIP was also present to make sure that nothing in the film is made up. So it almost he almost became this authenticity agent. And obviously we got sign-offs from the local government unit of the village and the elders of the village. And what you saw in the film, like during the celebration, that was the celebration of that journey. That was the last thing we did in the village, and we felt so much honor and just pride for how much this village has welcomed not only me but my team, because it started feeling like home for all of us.
You mentioned how Apo Whang-Od's work has been legendary,
Yes.
108 years old, which is when you see her on screen is just shocking.
Yeah.
But when you do have the opportunity to like encounter and then come to know someone who is this icon, but you come to know them as the person, I'm wondering maybe in reflection, anything that like particularly surprised you about her or that really caught you unaware, whether it was like you're aware of her presence or her work,
Yeah.
her craftspersonship.
Yeah.
Sorry.
As when I met her the first time, I was actually stunned. I didn't know what to say because we literally barged into her station, and Lars, who was with us, were also like saying hi and just making that connection. But the first time we met her, I had no words, because this was the lady in my dream, and I've been working on trying to tell her story and like find a way to connect with her village for the longest time. And and I had this, I don't know, made up pressure in my head that I have to keep it together so I don't come off as a fanboy, and just like keep it cool and like have proper conversations, only to find out that I'll be meeting a woman who jokes about everything almost every second, and she has so much personality. um I remember our tour guide who was telling me to loosen up because I feel, she feels like I'm tense and awkward. But other than that, like it really allowed me to connect with her even more. Someone like Apo Whang-Od who is full of humor. And I'd like to believe that I'm also a very humorous person. So so I kind of found my way to connect with her through that, and also just have an artist to artist conversation. I'm meeting a 108-year-old tattoo artist who's been committed to her art form since she was 9. And I'm teaching myself to stay in film for the last almost 10 years. And just finding out what that sole purpose and what that looks like to her, and learning firsthand why she even does what she does, was something that I took away with me, when I came back to Canada, and also share to people that at the end of the day, Apo Whang-Od just wants to keep her stories alive through her tattoos and her body. And just like me as a filmmaker who has a passion for storytelling, aim to do the same thing for my work and for the tattoos that are going onto my body.
Well, you only have like 90 more years to go
Yeah.
to rival her in terms of your
I'm
commitment to the discipline,
Yeah, exactly.
And she's still going. Some of the aerial cinematography in the film is really quite just stunning, especially of the space in which she lives, and it's complemented or counterpointed by some shots of Vancouver as well.
Yeah.
But can you speak a little bit just to the conversations you had with your team about the kind of the aesthetics or the visual approach to the film you wanted to take with it, and like really to balance out that kind of reverence for this space with like the realities of it as well.
Yeah, like visually, we were really inspired by two films, What Was Ours and The Territory. Those two were also like about the revival of their particular traditions and cultures within these indigenous villages. And yeah, when it came to Treasure of the Rice Terraces, we needed to have as many eyes possible in the village and across the Philippines and the rest of our journeys. And I'm so lucky to have a solid like cinematography team like led by John Fleming. Aerial stuff was led by John Ross. John Ross Films, sending that Inspire 3, and he keeps telling me, "Hey, like what do you want to do?" I'm like, "Man, like take me to the clouds." Like show us how beautiful the scenery is. And it's one of those things that I also learned as a director, that sometimes I do have to trust my team. Like I can tell them what I want or what I want to make sure that we have. But at the end of the day, we're all artists that are coming into the shoot. So trust everyone's sensibilities. And that's what brought us to oh my gosh, like all pretty much all the breathtaking aerial shots to the close and intimate footage and shot on 8 millimeter and 35 mil camera with Black Magics and Arri Alexa. Like when people ask me about the technicalities of this film, I can only go with the specific equipment we've used.
Yeah.
But also, it's really shout out to the team behind the cinematography for really, still making sure that it'll cut together beautifully and nicely, and yeah, and also allow people to just go on this journey with me, and not, yeah, with me and not through me.
That's a really interesting point. Want to maybe dig in a little bit with because you were on this journey. Um, so you, as a director, need to kind of maybe get your day, if you will, on given days, but you're
Oh, yeah.
also, I imagine, processing this own personal path that you're tracing at this point as well. And
Yeah.
what was that process like for you of having to kind of reconcile those two elements of being the director, but also being the person on this path?
Yeah, I think what really helped was we attempted an itinerary the first time we traveled, and then we did the same itinerary when we came back with cameras, and then we did the same itinerary when we came back with the crew. So logistically, on the director side of things, I think we were as prepared as we can to do the shoot while also establishing the uncertainties of documentary filmmaking, especially in the Philippines. Um, but also uh, really using the people around me as a point of reference of how much growth I've had on the personal side of things as a character in this film. When we were filming some behind the scenes stuff leading up, I think close to the end of the production, and I can hear Jacob's sentiments, like Bailey Wood's sentiment, John's sentiment of how much I've grown in this production and how proud I am now to be a Filipino. Gave me that validation, sense of validation that everything that I've done leading up to now, is all worth it. Because I remember when I moved to Vancouver and a little bit hesitant to introduce myself as a Filipino, um, it's, now it kind of gives me the ick. Why did I do that? But I also get it. Now I understand why I had to do that. It's, I was in survival mode, and especially for someone like me who grew up in the Philippines with a Western patronizing country, I knew that my accent might be on the safe zone. So I can pretend that I'm not Filipino. I could just say I'm Canadian with, Filipino parents and still get away with it. But, point of the matter is I'm glad that the transformation was candidly happening as we were doing the film. And, it's something that I'm excited to show to people, and also I'm just glad that this is going to be a piece of my life that I get to leave in this world.
And I realize we're really quickly on the heels of like the film having been completed, but wondering if you have a sense of like whether this is a close of a chapter for yourself, or is it part of a continuum for kind of the ongoing, self-discovery?
I think this is, on the tattoo side. On the tattoo side, I'm currently talking to another filmmaker here in Vancouver who wants to co-direct a tattoo documentary that will hopefully follow this. Um, but I think I'm also ready to. Part of me also is also ready to close this chapter of my filmmaking era, I guess, in the documentary space for a bit. Um, Personally, the last year or two, I really learned that when you're making a documentary film, liking a subject matter is not enough. You need to love it. You need to love it. And, and I learned that even though you love that subject matter so bad, you still need to think of yourself. You still need to take care of yourself. And I didn't, last year. So I lost a little bit of myself. I got lost and got caught up in my own chaos mid editing this movie. And yeah, finishing it gave me that boost of confidence that, yeah, I do have what it takes to finish a movie. And if taking time off documentaries will allow me to be the best version of myself as a filmmaker in the next 5 years, sure, we'll dip our toes in the fiction space. And hopefully, I'm really hoping to get back into the documentary space because I also have a lot of stories to tell.
Well, I'm curious as well because you also work as a program manager at TELUS Story Hive, and you mentioned earlier in the interview, some of those key folks, organizations that came on board to allow this film to reach the state where it is now. How did that maybe inform the way that you now go about like working with filmmakers who are earlier in their own kind of creative journey and equipping them to tell the stories that they have to tell?
Yeah, for me, it's keeping it honest. I always teach my students, especially when I was teaching in Vancouver Film School. I've always told my students that when by the time you get out of school, you have this certain perception of what the film industry looks like. Toss all of that out. And just be more present. Like teach yourself the practical way. Get to know, what the smallest job you can do, where you're most comfortable to, how far you can grow within the industry. Going back as a program manager at Story Hive, I've always told and shared to the project leads that we work with, they have it easy now. And for me, it's such a full circle moment, right? Because before you receive funding from an institution, you use that funding, make your project, and then deliver it back. But now, like places like Story Hive, the National Screen Institute, and other institutions in Canada, when you receive a grant, now there's training that comes with it. Now there's mentorship that comes with it. And, really take advantage of these things because, time flies. And sometimes, you find yourself complaining, how come I don't know this? Or you don't know a certain thing, but that's probably because you didn't ask the person when you were given the chance.
That is all fantastic. I'm going to wrap it up with a few questions we ask all of our guests. So, curious, when you reflect back, maybe a formative experience you had with cinema going, might have been very early years, or maybe it was teenage years. Something that really has like stuck with you indelibly is like, oh, this is a moment where movies meant something to me.
I think the very first one, it's one of my earliest memories actually. As a child, I remember watching Lion King the very first time, and it was on the loop in our house. And then my parents, when the cinema opened in our town, my mom brought me to watch Lion King, and that's when I felt cinema for the first time with so many people in one room. It's one thing to watch a movie with your family at home. You all pay attention to almost the same things. But when I experienced Lion King for the first time in cinema, I fell in love with the feeling that this movie gets to make people feel while the movie was playing. The reactions were the same, people were crying, and I loved it so much that I named my sister Kiara when she was born. Yeah.
How old would have you been? Do you remember?
Uh, Probably 6.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 6,
Pretty
7.
formative stuff.
Yeah.
And then for yourself, and when you kind of found yourself on the path to becoming a filmmaker, curious about, was there something that really kind of set you on that course? Like, was there a moment where you're like, this is something I want to pursue? And then maybe to a point you made earlier, any mentors along the way that really stand out for you?
Just committing to film first. I think, I always give this man a shout out. I would say it would be Kuya Mario. He was my coworker in Ottawa. I was a janitor. That was the very first job I've done in Canada. I talk openly about this. I'm so proud about my come up. Um, but it was my coworker, Kuya Mario, who looked at me in the eye because he saw me passing out during work. My body couldn't handle the work. We were cleaning a mall from 11 p.m. to 7 in the morning, and it was him who looked at me in the eye and said, "Hey Kent, if you have a dream, go chase that dream, like right now, because tomorrow you're gonna start, uh, you're gonna start getting used to making money, and you're gonna end up like me, and that's why I made Paco to close that chapter of my life, and and I don't still I still feel that I don't give Kuya Mario enough credit, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have talked to my dad. I wouldn't have quit the next day. I wouldn't have sent out applications to film school and really pursue what I want to do. Um, and and if I can find him in the future, and and spend some time with him, like I really want to show how far I've come from that time. And as for mentor, um, there's a lot of mentors in this industry. When you ask, they will provide. There's so much love in this industry that sometimes we take it for granted, But my Vancouver Film School mentor, Jamie Fall, is one. My mentors and introduced me to documentary filmmaking, Andrew Williamson and Henrik Meyer at Cedar Island Films, and also Jennifer Abbott, for allowing me to work on her production. Um, I owe it to these people. All the knowledge that I've when I say I owe it to these people, it's the foundational knowledge. If I didn't know a certain process, or if I didn't know how tax credits work or the finance plan work, I wouldn't have been able to continue to ask the right questions. Because after my time with them, and I committed to film a little bit more full time. That's when I got to experience the Whistler Film Festival Producers Lab. I was at the Canadian Film Center Producers Lab, and a lot more came into the picture just based on the foundation that I've learned from all these veterans.
And finally, we can look a little ways into the future.
Yes.
Maybe it's a year, maybe it's several years, but walking past a cinema, and on the marquee is the Rice Terraces, Treasure of the Rice Terraces, paired with a film and a double bill. What would fill your heart to see your film paired with?
I've been I've been pondering this question a lot. And I think on my ride on the way here, I really, I stuck with one, and that is Martika Escobar's Leonor Will Never Die. Um, that that film gave me promise and future as a filmmaker. It didn't need to be expensive. It didn't need to be gimmicky. It can feature an old lady, and have such a soft spot for elders. I was born and raised by my grandma. Apo is Apo. And Martika's film, um, like really provided that escape I needed when I went to go see it at TIFF when it played. And given the opportunity, sometime in the future, I play a double bill. I don't mind doing it with her film. Funeral Will Never Die.
It's a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kent, for
Thank
being
you
here
so
today,
much,
and
Curtis.
thanks for sharing the film with the festival as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the VIFF Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review. Also, check out viff.org to learn more about what's happening at the VIFF Center year-round.